Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our second Marvel Crisis Protocol character creation video. And today we are doing the Man of Steel himself. It's going to be Superman. Last week we did Batman, specifically the Batman from the Arkham series. This one we're going a little bit more generic with Superman. We're not going to be specifying which continuity it's going to be. It's just going to kind of be the character of Superman. So we're going to be taking a little bit of inspiration from the movies, the comics, you name it. So yeah, as usual, we're going to start this series, or this episode rather, just doing a very, very brief peek at his wiki page here. I'd imagine most people are pretty familiar with Superman, though. So, Superman, real name Clark Kent, is one of the last children of Krypton, sent as its dying planet's last hope to Earth, where he grew to become its kind, noble protector. Using his flight-enhanced strength, heat vision, and various other powers, he protects the planet and the universe from powerful threats, all while inspiring hope into others. He is also a founding member of the Justice League and the father of John Kent, the second Superman. So yeah, I mean, we kind of know who this character is pretty well already, but we will take a peek at the powers and abilities here, where I mean, Superman's been in comics for a long time, and this list is very, very exhaustive here. But it talks about his Kryptonian physiology, which gives him the abilities to fly. He's got heat vision and other sight-based abilities like his X-ray vision and things like that. His physical abilities are all enhanced to immense superhuman levels, as it says here. He is integral to the balance of the universe, so he's also just a very important character. Yeah, he's got the solar radiation absorption, energy absorption, which, you know, depending on how much energy can make him stronger or can leave him weak. He's got superhuman strength. He can do shockwave projection. If we want to go that route with him, I feel like his range attack will probably end up being his heat vision, though, because I mean that's a little bit more iconic, I think. Superhuman speed. This man is fast. He is right up there with the Flash in terms of speed. So yeah, really, really fast. Obviously not quite as fast as the Flash in most cases. Really depends who's writing him, but it is up there for him. Faster than a speeding bullet is one of the kind of taglines for him. Molecular acceleration through that, so yeah, he can do the phasing and stuff like that, sure. But yeah, superhuman everything, agility, reflexes, stamina, senses, vision, all of these different things he can do with his vision. He's got super hearing. Apparently, he's even got super taste. So sure, power to him. Accelerated healing. We could maybe consider giving me a healing factor or something like that. I feel like I'm going to be making him really obnoxious to take down, so we probably don't need to add something like healing factor on top of that, but still worth mentioning. He's resistant to toxins and diseases. At first, I would strike that as being potentially a poison immunity, but actually, if we kind of scroll down, and there's just so much here, and I'm not going to go through all of it because we'd be here all day. But after we get through the former powers and his abilities, where he's got genius level intellect, indomitable will, hand-to-hand combat, intimidation, investigation, journalism, because that's another thing. Leadership, we are going to be giving him a leadership ability. He's going to be our leader of the Justice League. You know, all these different things. When we get to weakness, he does have that vulnerability to magic, which we're going to be taking advantage of to kind of make sure we give him a weakness here. And of course, kryptonite. We're going to be kind of treating kryptonite as magic. If we eventually get around to doing the villains of the DC universe and we do characters like Lex Luthor, I'm going to be making all kryptonite style weapons magic damage, or mystic damage rather. But here specifically, radiation poisoning is a thing. So we can. I don't really want to remove the poison condition from him. I think we're not gonna give him an immunity to that, because that is kind of a thing. It's a little weak, but I think we're gonna go with it when you look at characters like Abomination handing out poison, and that's kind of that sort of idea. So yeah, we're gonna go with that. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things to do with him here, but I think we have a pretty good idea of what the character does. He's super strong. He can fly. He's fast. He's got the heat vision. He's got the freeze breath if we want to try and incorporate that. And of course, he's going to be the leader of the Justice League. And he's nearly invulnerable because that's a thing. Obviously, we're not going to be making a character that is just ridiculously overpowered and saying, he cannot take damage from physical or energy attacks. That's just not very realistic for from a balance perspective. Obviously, there should be almost no world where a character who's just throwing a sword or a little pistol should be able to hurt him. But for the sake of game balance, we are going to have to allow that. But we are going to make it so he is really, really strong on those physical or energy sides, and then give him that kind of obvious weakness in Mystics. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and get right into that. Alrighty, so first things first here, we do, oh, I should probably go into edit mode, that would help out. We do need to start figuring out what we want to do for threat and stat line here, and I think for threat, we're going to go ahead and do a 6 threat, maybe 7 threat. You know what, yeah, screw it, we're going to do a 7 threat Superman here. We're going to definitely be doing a very powerful version of him. I think I'm going to be taking a lot of inspiration from characters like Immortal Hulk, or just regular Hulk for that matter, in terms of kind of offensive capabilities. A little bit of inspiration from Black Swan as well, who actually has a kind of similar power set to Superman just in general. So I think those are going to be kind of the main characters that I focus on for kind of what he's actually doing on his turn. And then in terms of durability, I want to look at some of the bulkiest characters in the game. I'm thinking stuff like Thanos, for his damage reduction to 0. I toyed around with the idea of a damage reduction by 2, although that definitely shouldn't go to 0 because that just gets kind of obnoxious. With like Hood or something like that, who has a damage reduction by 2. So those are kind of the places where I'm looking at going with that. Is we're going to be a 7 threat model. We're going to have a decent amount of health. I don't want to go too crazy with the health. But we're going to have some seriously strong defensive tech. So I think for health, I'm going to give him 7 health, and I think I'm going to give him 7 on both sides. I'm actually kind of strongly considering making him only like a 6-7 or something like that. But by that point, I'm definitely giving him reduction by 2. So I think for now, I'm going to do 7-7, maybe 7-8. I definitely think if he's going to have a higher side, it should be his flip side, because you get that in the Superman stories all the time where, he's taken a beating and then he comes back stronger. So yeah, I think I actually might be pushing myself more and more towards that 7-8 split there. Still not a crazy amount of health, but we're going to be giving him really, really good defensive abilities here. So yeah, as far as defenses go, I think we're going to just go ahead and bump both of these up to 5 here. He is going to be very, very annoying to punch on the physical or energy side. Very doable. I mean, it is just dice at the end of the day. I'm not going to be giving him counting blanks or anything like that. But those are really good dice, and we're going to give him that kind of Thanos style damage reduction, I think. So yeah, those sides are going to be rough. And then as far as Mystic goes, I was kind of between 1, 2, and 3 for this one. On one hand, 3 would make sense because at the end of the day, his vulnerability to magic, I think, shouldn't really feel like more of a vulnerability than your average dude would have. Because that's kind of what it is it just kind of affects him the same way it would affect your average dude. At least that's my understanding of his vulnerability there. It's just more that he's not invulnerable to it. So, he's definitely not a dumb character by any means or anything like that. So I feel like putting it low kind of does a bit of a disservice there. But on the other hand, balance-wise, making it a big weakness to him, putting it as a 1 or a 2 because it can really just slap him sometimes, is also very reasonable. So I think I'm going to land in kind of the middle ground there, and I'm going to go with a 2 for this. I think that's reasonable, and yeah, I'm liking that. As far as size goes, we're going to keep him as a 2. He's a big dude, but he's not, that big. So I think 2 is more than reasonable for his size. And for speed, we're going to be putting him on a small base here. So I think it's pretty reasonable just to make him a long mover. He's going to be fast. That's very much going to be a thing. But I think that's still relatively reasonable. Yeah, he should be fast. Superman, turns out, is very, very capable of moving. So I think that's what we're going to do for our base stats here. And we'll see at the end whether I'm feeling the 7-8 or 7-7 for stamina, but we'll figure that out at the end. All right, so before we get into attacks and things like that, I do just want to put that kind of Thanos level damage reduction here, and we're just going to call it, I think, Man of Steel. That kind of makes sense to me. It's going to be a passive, and it's just going to be that DR by 1 to no minimum whenever you would take damage from an enemy effect. I might even add something that where like this doesn't apply to mystic attacks. So if you take damage to an enemy effect that is not a mystic attack, then reduce it by 1, something like that. I'll figure out how I'm going to word it, but yeah, I really want to make sure that's a clear weakness for him, but I also still want it to affect throws and things like that. So yeah, we'll kind of go from there. All right, so there is the Man of Steel superpower on the card here. So yeah, now that we've got that out of the way, I do want to kind of start thinking about the leadership that we're going to give him, and how I want to at least somewhat design the kit with that in mind. And honestly, I'm not 100% sure where I want to go with this. I've been kind of throwing around some ideas of whether, one thing that the Justice League kind of does, and I even kind of looked at their wiki description to kind of get this. Um, one thing they're kind of known for is facing these impossible odds. I mean, that's kind of just the superhero thing in general is facing impossible odds. But it seems to be something that they kind of get thrown a lot. You know, they're always it's always saving the entire world and these incredible threats yeah, they just kind of always seem to be written as like they're on the back foot from the beginning and they have to overcome it. Which again, that's kind of just superhero 101, but it kind of seems one of the main ideas here. So I think I want to do something with that. I want to do something with the idea of them getting back up, them taking a hit and coming back stronger, maybe taking some inspiration from something like Occ 2. So I'm going to workshop for a second here, pause my recording, and then get back when I've got something. All right, so I've come up with a bit of an idea, and I'm kind of merging some things from two different leaderships, both leaderships that are actually really, really strong. So maybe this will end up being too good of a leadership, but we'll see. At the end of the day, this series isn't about making the most balanced things in the world, just kind of having some fun ideas. So basically, I want to kind of have two sides to it. So both of them are going to have to do with your models being punched, but the idea is kind of only one of them will ever trigger from one attack at a time because they'll both be things that happen after the attack. So one of them will affect the model that is being punched, while the other one will affect a different model on your team. So the first one is basically really, really simple. Once one of your characters takes damage from an enemy effect, or maybe specifically attack, in this case, I don't want to make it too strong and generic with throws and things like that. So when an allied character takes damage from an enemy attack, they'll after the attack's resolved, they'll gain 1 power. Very, very simple, kind of taking some things from the Doc Ock leadership there, almost directly, but we don't have that condition removal thing. From there, we're also going to take something from Sam's leadership, and that is going to be when an allied character is dazed by an enemy effect. And I specifically don't want to do KO'd here. I think I'm just going to be doing dazed. Another allied character may advance small towards them. So the idea of kind of when one member goes down, the rest of the group kind of close ranks around them to protect them and help them out when they get back up. Won't work when they're KO'd because then they're just down. The other group doesn't need to close ranks around them because they're not there anymore. So that's kind of the idea. I don't think either effect is too strong. I think the one that I'm stealing from Sam is kind of just worse than Sam's, and the one that I'm stealing from Doc Ock is kind of just worse than his. So I think overall we get something that's probably pretty decent, hopefully not too strong. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and word that out here and we'll come back. All right, so here we have the Justice League. So when an allied character is dazed by an enemy effect, choose another non-dazed allied character. After the effect is resolved, the chosen character may advance small towards the dazed character. And then additionally, when an allied character is damaged by an enemy attack, the allied character gains 1 power after the attack is resolved. So yeah, the first part's still on any effect, so if they're throwing stuff and whatever, you'll still get to do it. And then the second part is just when you're damaged by attacks, you'll gain some extra power. So yeah, I really want to kind of emphasize their ability to kind of clap back, which just kind of seems to be something that they do in a lot of their stories. So I think it's a good way of kind of showing that side of these characters, and hopefully making a relatively generic leadership so I can be free to do some kind of fun things with all of the other characters. All right, so I think it's time we start working on some attacks here. And I want to do three attacks, I think I've decided. So the first one's just going to be our basic strike. This is just going to be, punching someone down here. Our second one, we're going to do our heat vision for this one. There's a world where I want to make this a beam, but I think I'm going to make this single target. And then our third one is going to be our spender, which is kind of just going to be a better version of the strike sort of deal. I don't know if I would want to do something more complex than that for this. There's a world, you could do something like cold breath or something like that. But I think we're going to stick with those for now. So the first one is just going to be our basic strike, and I think we're just going to call it strike because, I mean, it's kind of boring. Maybe I'll think of something cooler as we go on. But for now, I think it gets the point across. This is going to be a range 2, and being a 7 threat, I think we're fine to make this a 7 dice attack. Being a long mover means we are threatening the midline with this, but only if our opponent is playing aggressively, so that should be okay. And I think we're going to be going kind of directly with the Immortal Hulk thing here of I think I'm just going to give it a wild throw. And of course, it's going to be a builder, so you're going to gain power based on your damage dealt. But yeah, I think we're going to take the wild throw right off of Immortal Hulk here. That's kind of why I made him 7 threat versus 6. We could totally do the push that words regular Hulk has, but I think I think the throw just kind of feels more like Superman. I don't really see him sending people back so much as picking them up and just tossing them. I find it feels a little bit more controlled than just a push. So yeah, I think we're gonna go with a throw, and I'll word that out here. All right, so this attack at this point is pretty much identical to Hulk's just basic builder here. But yeah, I think that kind of fits really, really well for Superman. I did choose to make it an omnidirectional throw because again, that's kind of something I can see Superman doing a lot is kind of just like, picking them up and whipping them behind him or something like that. Definitely something I've seen in, movies and shows with Superman in them. So yeah, really, really fits for me with the character. And yeah, I think this one just kind of wrote itself. The next one is going to be a little bit more interesting. I don't think we're copying this one quite the same from from at least not from a Hulk. And this is going to be the Heat Vision attack, where, yeah, obviously this is going to be our ranged attack here. And I think this one I'm going to make very, very similar to Black Swan's Heat Vision attack. So Black Swan's is it's only range 3, and I feel like we can go further range on Superman's here, especially given he is a higher threat. But basically, it's an energy attack that's going to light the target on fire, and I think that's kind of the idea we're going to go for here. So I think for range, we can pretty safely bump it up to 4. And then for dice, I think we can do 5, maybe 6 dice for this one. I'm going to lean towards 6. And then we kind of have two options with the power. We can make it a little bit more powerful and we can make it cost 1 or 2 power. Not opposed to that at all. Kind of leaning towards costing 1 power. Or alternatively, we can make it a gainer. I think in this case, I'm going to make it cost 1 power. And we're going to make the incinerate, I think, automatic. And I think that's probably enough. A 6 dice gainer that just lights them on fire is pretty good. So yeah, I think we're gonna go that direction with it. Yeah, again, might be a little bit strong, but this is a 7 or no, yeah, this is a 7 threat. So I think we can kind of get away with something like that. All right, so simple as that, we have our heat vision here. And yeah, pretty straightforward. It's going to be a 1 cost. It's going to throw out the incinerate condition. And I think we are going to probably be giving him something, probably as one of the last maybe 1 or 2 things on his card here. We're going to be giving him a ability to gain an extra power during the power phase, I think is kind of what I'm going for here. He's going to start with 2. And so basically, if he wants, he can spend all of his power just blasting out that heat vision, which I think is kind of fitting because the idea behind the extra power is going to be, he's absorbing from the sun and then he's blasting it all out. So if he's using the heat vision for too long, he's basically being left with nothing. He's fully draining his own reserves there. Is kind of the idea, and that's something that we also see all the time in Superman media. So yeah, I think that's kind of a decent direction to go with it. And for this last attack here, I think I'm going to call it the Last Son of Krypton. And yeah, I think this is just going to kind of be one of those, hey, what if we had something that was a longer range and better version of our builder attack here. We see these types of attacks on characters all the time. So I think we're going to bump it to a range 3. We're only going to bump it up maybe 1 or 2 dice. Let's go 2. Let's make it a big 9 dicer. Those always feel great. And I think we're going to go give or take 4 or 5 power for this, and it's going to have a couple special rules on it. So the first thing I want to give it is some form of throw. So he's gonna toss the character afterwards, and then I think the only other thing I want to give it is a place. So basically, we're gonna time it in the friendly way, so you kind of get to pick which one you do first. But we're gonna have them both kind of be maybe one of them's on a wild, and like the throw will be on a wild or something like that, and the place will be automatic. But they're both after the attack is resolved, so you can place and then you throw them away. We'll make this one an any size throw, so if you're playing against something that's size 5, you'll be able to do this to them, whereas the strike one we made only size 4. But yeah, I think that works pretty well. It's just basically going to be a way you throw more dice, better odds on that throw, and you get some mobility out of it being a range 3 attack. So I think that's kind of what we're going to go for with this, and yeah, we'll go from there. All right, so I was thinking about it while I was writing out the attack, and I was thinking about the other Hulks that exist in the game, and I think it's actually kind of safe to make this throw automatic too. So that's the real reason why you're spending for this, is you're getting that automatic throw. It is only a way, but you do have that place, so you're going to be able to place and kind of dictate where you throw them from there, or you can use it for the extra distance of throwing them and then placing off of where they land. Probably a really, really strong spender, but again, it's a 7 threat, so I think we can kind of get away with something like that. So one thing at this point that I am starting to notice is we're running out of room on this card, and there were a few more things that I wanted to put on here because I totally forgot there was actually a couple more superpowers that I had in mind. Notably, I wanted him to have some sort of terrain or character throw, or both, of course. And that was something that I felt would have been really, kind of that is definitely Superman is something Superman is very, very capable of doing. So we might end up having to do away with that because we do have all of these the character throws here. We might have to do away with the one on his card because I also wanted to give him some form of charge, and I want to give him that extra power thing, and that's just kind of too many things to fit on the remaining amount of space on his card, largely because he does have that leadership, and it is kind of 2 leaderships in one, making it take up a lot of space here. So that's something that I kind of got to keep in mind here going forward. So I think I'm going to prioritize giving him a charge. And yeah, I think that just makes a lot of sense here. This model, I want him to be able to be really fast. I want him to be able to punch most, if not every turn. Um, and I want him to be able to come back from control relatively easily. I mean, we see that all the time in Superman media. He'll get thrown away, and then he's just darting back out at the thing that threw him, at crazy speeds. And those are always the really fun, the fun Superman fights to watch, and I kind of want to channel that sort of energy here. So I'm going to be giving him a 3 cost charge, but one thing I do want to kind of make very clear with it is that it's only going to be his strike that he's allowed to use, because I think giving him access to the range 4 or the range 3 attacks on this charge is going to be pretty scary. So we're going to make it so he can only charge into his strike. I think that gives it a little bit more of a balancing thing, and we'll probably make it as a once per turn as well. So I'm going to go ahead and write that out. Alrighty, so I've went ahead and written out his charge here, and I just realized I must have messed up the formatting because strike disappeared, so whoops. There we go. Now the word strike is actually there. So he gets to make a move action followed by a strike action, and this can only be used once per turn. Additionally, to try and free up a little bit of space here, I gave him his extra power as just a part of the Man of Steel superpower, so I've got that written in there as well. At this point, I'm definitely not seeing enough space to give him any other meaningful superpowers, unfortunately, so I think we are pretty much calling him here. I do have to give him the flight superpower. I just remembered that as well. We're going to put it as display below artwork, just to give us that extra little bit of space here. But yeah, we're going to have to give that to him as well, obviously, because turns out that's something he should probably have. It's tempting to give him some immunities as well to some of the other conditions. I thought about maybe giving him immunity to something like stun, or even stagger. Might not be a bad idea. Incinerate as well. He doesn't really care about fire most of the time. There's a few we could definitely give him. I think I'm leaning towards, especially since I can't put anything else on his card here, I'm probably going to give him immunity to stun because I think having reduced power is really, really bad for him. So we're gonna give him stun, and you know what? I'm actually gonna talk myself into the incinerate here as well, because I think that's pretty solid to have. So yeah, we're gonna give him that, and that's gonna go here, and it's gonna cut off. So we're not actually gonna put it below the artwork, because we made it slightly too long for that, but that's fine, because we have the space for it here. So yeah, that is a full card here. And honestly, because I didn't get to add that extra character or terrain throw there, I'm actually feeling like he might be, if anything, underpowered. He's got some really, really strong attacks. He's super fast. Oh my gosh, we did give him the damage reduction. I was like, oh, did I forget that? No, no, thankfully I didn't. Um, so yeah, he's gonna be pretty annoying to take down. But I'm definitely feeling like on the flip side, we want to make sure we give him that extra point of stamina there. Maybe even two. That might be too much. No, I'm just gonna give him one. I'm just gonna give him one. I think that's fine. Um, one extra point of stamina on his flip side should be totally fine. But yeah, he's gonna have a reasonable amount of health. He's got 15 overall stamina, but with a damage reduction, that's probably gonna feel like a lot more than 15, especially with those amazing defensive dice there. Mystic is gonna be a huge weakness for him though. You throw like a Scarlet Witch or something like that at him, it's really gonna be whichever one punches first wins because they're both just gonna take each other out like it's nothing. So yeah, I think that's kind of a good spot to have him. I like that there. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with this overall. I really wish I could have squeezed in that character or terrain throw in there, because I do think it would make him feel a little bit better. And I don't think we really have to change much else. Maybe at that point I make him 7/7. But yeah, definitely curious to know what you guys think down below in the comments, and you know, just kind of your thoughts on the series in general so far, how you guys are feeling with these custom characters. Support was a lot higher than I expected it to be on the first episode of the series, so that was awesome to see. I really, really appreciate you guys, trying out this series and seeing what it's all about. Definitely been appreciated. I know custom content is always kind of one of those weird gray areas, where, some people are really into it, some people don't want to touch it. So definitely appreciate you guys checking this stuff out. But yeah, I think that's just about gonna do it for our Superman here. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do drop a like down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We're gonna be running this series weekly, as well as a bunch of other kind of discussion focused things we do throughout the week. And we got battle reports on weekends. So if you're a fan of any of that sort of thing, feel free to jump on in. But that's gonna do it for my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think down below. But until next time, have a great day, everybody. Peace.